Yellowstone caldera, aka the Yellowstone supervolcano, can be found in the Yellowstone National Park, Wyoming, USA. And while it isn't the only supervolcano on Earth, it is by far the most well-known. The site has seen at least 3 major eruptions in its relatively recent history, geologically speaking, with one around 2.1 million years ago, another 1.3 million years ago, and another 640,000 years ago. Famously, and partially based on the gaps between those previous eruptions, there are predictions that Yellowstone could go again soon. We're reportedly within a window, a wide window admittedly, where if the patterns of volcanism continue, the caldera will blow. And if and when that happens, if humans are around to see it, we're in for something spectacular, but also potentially truly apocalyptic. Were Yellowstone to erupt with its full force, we're talking masses of volcanic material ejected up 20 miles into the sky, everywhere for at least the surrounding 50 miles covered in lava, an incomparably massive, burning and choking ash cloud surging all over America, worldwide acid rain, global agricultural ruin, a long volcanic winter, total climate chaos for everyone, and literally years, maybe decades, before Earth gets itself back to anything close to normal conditions. In the worst case scenario, it's complete devastation, and a scenario the like of which humankind would struggle to survive. So, with that in mind, might there be a way for us to gain some control over Yellowstone? To dictate when and how severely it erupts? And if that were possible, then is there also a danger that the caldera could ever be targeted for nefarious reasons, too? The main thing to consider is the sheer power we're dealing with here. While some predictions are speculation, it's generally said and calculated that a Yellowstone eruption would release around 1,000 cubic kilometers or 240 cubic miles worth of hot and toxic material. The event would be triggered by a massive buildup of pressure in an also incomparably large magma chamber, about 5 miles below the surface. There should be warning signs before the final blast, including a dramatic increase in earthquake activity around the volcano, and a literal rising and falling of the land as the magma churns underneath. And when it does go, the energy release would far outstrip that of humanity's most destructive weapons. When it comes to comparing atomic and hydrogen bombs to the total output of Yellowstone, the predicted numbers can widely vary, but the bombs are always comfortably beaten. As devastating as we know the atomic bomb to be, when the magma chamber breaks free at Yellowstone, it will do so with thousands of times, perhaps hundreds of thousands of times, more power. One way to think about our title question, then, is that we would need a lot of nukes to purposely push Yellowstone into action. So many nukes, in fact, that just trying to set the volcano off would constitute a major Armageddon event in itself. And even then, Yellowstone would likely remain unmoved. It's not, then, believed that just one isolated explosion, or even many, would ever be enough, avalanche-like, to start the end of days. One isolated asteroid strike, however, would be a different matter. Watch out for our follow-up video on what if an asteroid hit Yellowstone for an in-depth look. But for now, we can say that this scenario could be carnage. The asteroid that did for the dinosaurs is thought to have brought with it multiple billions of times the energy of a nuclear bomb. So, if we fast forward to a hypothetical time in the future of our species where controlling asteroids is possible at something like a Kardashev Type 2.5, then it might also be possible to deliberately erupt Yellowstone, were an ill-meaning force to crash a big enough rock from space right on top of it, perhaps timing their assault to coincide with a period of rising pressure beneath the volcano, then perhaps it could be done. Although, again, the arrival of such an asteroid, period, would already be enough to induce the apocalypse on its own before Yellowstone even got involved. As frightening as all this can feel, however, might there be a way to manipulate Yellowstone ourselves, but for positive and advantageous reasons instead? According to one proposal by NASA, there could be. News of the plan first broke back in 2017, and in theory, it sounds like quite a simple fix. NASA scientists essentially want to cool Yellowstone off. To do this, they propose drilling a few miles down from the caldera's surface to gain side access into the magma chamber. Next, water would be pumped into the chamber, circulated, and brought back to ground level. The returning water would be incredibly hot, but it will have also taken a small amount of heat away from the volcano. Repeat the process over a long period of time, as in a couple thousand years by some predictions, and eventually, the chamber should be cooled enough that it won't ever blow again. It's like the volcano will have been placed on mute. The plan gets even better though, as NASA suggests that the returning super hot water could then be used to fuel power plants. Back on top of the volcano, we'd build numerous geothermal power facilities to ultimately harvest Yellowstone for our own energy needs. Were this to happen, the volcano will have been transformed from a specter of doom into a well of hope, in what would surely be one of the most ingenious tech projects that humankind had ever seen. But there are potential problems too. First, there's a predicted cost of upwards of $3.5 billion to make the plan a reality, a huge number, and a really hard sell for funding. But second, and most concerning of all, while the idea works on paper, there's a reasonable chance that it could go very wrong. To the point that drilling down into the magma chamber could even trigger accidentally the eruption that we'd been hoping to stop. The threat level during the drilling would potentially be higher than it would even be were we to drop bombs onto the site, because by drilling into the volcano, rather than pummeling the surface, it's as though we'd be tickling its underbelly, goading it to bite back. Ultimately, then, over the years with Yellowstone, we've seen various predictions, speculations, plans, and theories put forward. Various attempts by mankind to make sense of an all-out monster of the natural world. And it's easy to see why Yellowstone is a big concern, because an eruption would spell disaster like we've never seen before. But there are reasons not to worry as well. Namely, short of a seriously sustained nuclear attack on the place or a purposely redirected asteroid strike, both of which are unlikely for various reasons, it's hugely unlikely that humanity could ever do anything to blow Yellowstone on purpose. And so, we're back to just letting nature take its course, and hoping that there's no eruption now or in the near future. And again, there are reasons to feel good. Based on the timeline of past eruptions, it may well be the case that Yellowstone is due to erupt again, as is so often reported, but really, the chances of it happening next week, next year, in the next 100 years, or even in the next 1,000, are still said to be extremely small. Most projections claim that we should still be safe for at least another 10,000 years, by which time, who knows, we really might have found a way to nullify the danger anyway. But for now, that's why we're unlikely to ever erupt Yellowstone on purpose.